Hey guys, received a message from a lady who's been going through a hard time and asked if it would be possible to make a video on the topic, just on that general topic. So yes, here we are. So her situation was that she'd been with someone for a couple of years and then they lived together and they found that they were having problems, and then she suggested to him that he leave, that they break up, and so he said yes, and they did. And then she sort of, obviously, she's going through all sorts of emotions now because she'd be feeling very sad, and also she'd be wondering if she did the right thing and if she said the right thing, and all those normal emotions that people go through after a situation like that. So again, one of the very few advantages of being really old is that when you're really old, you've seen things, and if you've paid attention and been observant, I mean, it is also possible to be really old and still really stupid, right? Because you haven't paid enough attention, and you know, we probably all know people like that just have no idea, and will always have no idea. But if you pay attention to what's going on and see what happens and observe, you generally can learn a few little things here and there. And unfortunately, in life, that story is really common, of course. So there's a number of reasons for it. One is when we first meet people. It tends to be a fairly exciting and emotional time when you first get with someone for the first time, doesn't it? With that person for the first time. It's exciting. It's on all sorts of levels, you know. Our mind's excited, our bodies are excited. Oh, it's just wonderful, isn't it, you know? And so there's that aspect. There's also the aspect of when we first get with people, we tend to make a bit of an effort. Everyone tends to make a bit more effort when you first start getting with people, don't they? Show their best side all the time and sort of keep other things away, and there's that as well. The other thing is that there is actually some chemicals that are released, endorphins and things that are released when you first get with someone, that allow you to ignore a lot of things that normally bother you. So when you combine all these things together, that's why what usually happens is when you first get with someone, it's all perfect. And how often do you hear that? You know, someone tells you, oh, I've got someone new in my life and they're just perfect, you know? And once you get old and you've seen this a lot of times, you know what's going to come next. You know what's going to come next. So they're perfect. And really? And then a couple of weeks later, you know, geez, I don't know, this is starting to piss me off a bit, you know? And slowly what happens is the real situation starts to emerge. And it's not just that other person, of course, it's you as well. And it's just, you both start to see the situation more clearly for what it really is. And you both start behaving more like your normal selves, and then after a period of time you get to find out what you're really about, and then often what happens is, you know, people will decide, no, this isn't the right one for me after all. And that's why most people usually don't marry the first person that they get with, and then if they do, usually it ends badly, because the chances of getting, you know, the right person the first time round is pretty remote. So usually it takes a few times like this before we get someone that we can stay with for a long period of time. And, you know, it's perfectly normal and natural, and it's not surprising at all, is it, you know? So it's just the way it is. The other thing is too, that was a really interesting thing, or typical thing in the story, was being together for a couple of years and then living together and then having a problem, and that's really common too. And of course, in societies like Japan, where it's frowned on to live together before you get married, that problem is a big problem, because many people here don't live together until they get married, and then they get married and live together and find it's hell. And I've had people tell me this, you know, that they had a boyfriend or a girlfriend that they saw once a week and it was all okay, and then they got married and they got to live together. And you know, those of you who've lived with people will be sitting there nodding, going, yeah, you know, that's when you find out what it's really about. Those of you who haven't lived with someone before as a partner, live together, you see each other first thing in the morning and last thing at night. If you're a partner, you're sleeping together. You're sleeping beside each other all night. So last thing at night, beside each other all night, first thing in the morning, and all the reality of living together. All the reality of living together. You're cleaning the toilet, and cleaning the kitchen, and all the day-to-day unromantic stuff. And when you're dating, it's all fabulous, isn't it? You get ready at home and you get dressed and you get all nice and clean. You got your clean clothes on and okay, let's go, and off we go, and you have a date. Spend a day together or a night together or a weekend together or something. Hey. And then you go home to your separate homes, and then you do all your dirty jobs and all your disgusting, put on your old crappy clothes and look as crappy as you ever do. And, whereas when you live together, you see it all. So you go from this fairy tale type environment where the only time you see each other it's all perfect and wonderful, the situation is, and then suddenly you move in together, and it really is sudden too, isn't it? I mean, usually when people move in together, it's like you're not living together, and then you put all your stuff and you move in and you're living together. It's usually one day it changes from being dating to living together, and it's a sudden change, and then you find out what you're really both made of, and that's all natural, and there's the dynamics of having a living together relationship are obviously way different than the dynamics of just being boyfriend and girlfriend. You have to be able to work out problems between you and situations between you, and just day-to-day domestic stuff. Who's going to do the cooking and the cleaning, and who's going to clean what day, and who's going to cook what day and when, and who's going to do your laundry, and you do your laundry together or you do it separately, and you're not doing as much as I'm doing, or you should do more, or I don't like the way you do that, and I don't like the way you do that, and why are you leaving this on the floor? And it's tricky. It really is tricky. And even those of you who haven't had boyfriends and live-in boyfriends and girlfriends, just sharing, you'll know these stories. Just try sharing a place, sharing an apartment or a house with some other people. All this stuff comes up. So this is suddenly thrown into the equation, And I mean, I think, just in my opinion, I think this living together thing's really important. I think, I watch Japanese people here and what they do, and it's just like, you can just see it's disaster waiting to happen. 30-year-olds that have lived at home all their lives, and suddenly they get married and move in together. It's like, you just know, they've never shared with anyone before. The only people they've ever lived with were their parents and their brothers and sisters, and suddenly they're married and living with someone. They got zero experience sharing, even with just sharing with other people. Zero experience of that. So just no idea about paying bills, no idea about all the domestic stuff they got to do and everything that has to be done, and just so as far as I can see, that the living together things are a really, really important part of it. But you just got to accept, in the same way that you've got to accept that dating, you start dating someone, and if you're a caring, kind, sort of emotional sort of person who feels strongly, then it's inevitable that if you start spending time with someone and then you get close to someone and then you break up, of course it's going to be painful. I mean, the only people that wouldn't feel pain in a situation like that would be psychopaths, right? So if you're the sort of a person who feels emotions, breaking up with someone's going to be painful every time. And if you live together, it's deeper. Well, not necessarily, but it can often be deeper if you've lived together and you have seen each other every morning and every night, and suddenly it's over, and that can make it even bigger a jolt. So yeah, look, it's just life. Again, being old, these things go in perspective. I mean, old people still feel pain when they break up with someone as well. But you do tend to get a different perspective on it, and you'll hear this when you're old. Your friends tend to be old too, and friends, you hear people, a 40-year-old breaks up with someone, or a 50-year-old breaks up with someone. Usually they're a bit more philosophical about it. Usually they go, oh well, it wasn't meant to be, wasn't the right one for me, and that's all it really is. And again, I had a bit of a sense from her message that she was trying to decide whose fault it was or if she'd been to blame or whatever. It doesn't matter, totally irrelevant, because it's like more like two pieces of a puzzle trying to fit together, you know. And when you're trying to do a jigsaw puzzle and you pick up a piece and another piece and you try and put them together and they don't fit, you can't blame one piece or the other. They just don't fit, right? They're just not the right fit, those two pieces. And it's just like that, really. You know, who decides that they don't want to be together, or who leaves, or whoever, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, you know. And it doesn't mean anything about you. Those two pieces don't fit together. It doesn't mean one piece is not good. It just means those two pieces don't fit together. They're not the right fit. You need to get another two pieces to fit together, you know. Pick up another one, try another one. Does that fit? No. Try another one. Does that fit? That's all you're doing. And if the other person doesn't want to be with you, you know, she said to the other person, maybe we should break up, and he went, yeah, okay, and he left. So she said she was wondering if she'd done the right thing by suggesting it. Well, yeah, probably, because, you know, if you're meant to be together, well, you probably wouldn't have thought of suggesting you leave, for one thing. You probably wouldn't have suggested that you break up. If you were totally convinced that he was the right one for you, you wouldn't have suggested that you break up. And if he was totally convinced that you're right for each other, he wouldn't have left, would he? So, you know. And the other thing is, sometimes people do, now, I don't want to put false hope into anybody, because that's not a good thing, but there are situations where people have been together and then gone through a rough period and then decided later that they were right for each other, and they've tried again and got together and it has worked. Not often, right? That's not normally the case. Usually if you've broken up with someone, usually there's a reason for it. You're just not the right fit for each other. But occasionally people will break up and then get back together again later on, and it will work. So the point of mentioning that is shouldn't give you false hope. I mean, the chances of that are pretty remote. If you break up with someone, chances are that's the end of it. And the last thing you want, if it's not right, if you're not a right fit for each other, is to keep trying. It ends up, you know, just prolonging the pain. It's not necessarily a good thing to do. But there is an element too of, if you do break up, if you are meant to be together, then you'll get back together. And that does occasionally happen. But usually not. Usually if you can't resolve it, you know, if you've given it a good shot, there's sort of a bit of a balancing act with these sort of things with relationships. I mean, you don't want to be too fast to give up, you know. Oh man, you left your clothes on the lounge room floor again. Right, that's it, I'm gone, you know. You don't want to give up too soon, but you know, if you've given I got the impression she'd given it a few months. You live together for a few months and it's not working, and you just feel like it's not working, and he feels like it's not working. Well, it's not working, is it? You know, and of course, breaking up's always the same. You go from being in a relationship where you got someone, and most of us are designed to want to be with someone. So, you know, we want to have. It's nice to get up in the morning and have someone there. Hello, you know, and come home at night after your big day and have someone to talk to. And you know, most of us are sort of designed to have a partner, are we? Even if you're not living together, just have someone you can send a message to, or call up, or hey, let's get together, or you know, what are you doing? I'm coming over, or you know what I mean? Just have someone in your life thinking of you. You know, send a message. Hey, you know, you know that there's someone that you're thinking of, and they're thinking of you, and you know, most of us want to feel like that, don't we? Most of us, not everybody, but most people like to feel that there's one person out there that really cares about us, and we really care about them, and leaves you feeling all warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? There's something in us that makes us want to do that. So of course, if you've been in that situation, even if it hasn't been real good, even if it's been pretty rough and it hasn't been real good, when you go from that to breaking up, suddenly you feel like you got no one. So you've had that person you could send messages to, and you could call up, and you can get together with, and hold, and all the other good stuff, and then suddenly they're gone, and you got no one. That's the feeling, you've got no one. And it leaves you feeling really empty and really lonely and really sad. I mean, this is all natural. This is all natural. This is what, you know, most people feel after they've broken up with someone, and of course that's painful. And there's sort of there's a time factor with this. It just takes time after you've gone through those sorts of traumas just to recover, you know. I mean, I think I mentioned this on a previous video on this sort of topic. You just got to get busy. Just get busy. Whatever it is that you do that makes you feel good, drugs or alcohol are usually not the solution. Healthy stuff that's good for you, that makes you feel good, whether that's sitting and talking with your other friends, or don't bounce. You got to watch out you don't bounce back and grab the next person who's not right for you. It's good to have a period of time where you don't do any dating for a while and just recover a bit and just spend time with real friends, genuine friends that you aren't shagging, genuine friends, and just spend some time with some real friends and do whatever. Usually anything physical is good if you've got sport or any sort of sport or hobby or anything that you do that you enjoy doing that makes you feel good. That's always a good thing to throw yourself into. When I go through hard times, I often find myself, productive things always leave you feeling better, I find. So even with, I'm married, so it's not a big issue for me, but if things get tough for me at home sometimes, or just in life sometimes, if something's bothering me, I find doing something productive makes me feel better, even if it's something small. So we got a big garden, so I can go outside and clean up something in the garden, or cut the grass, or water the plants, or anything productive tends to leave you feeling a little bit better. It's good, moping around, sitting around. Drugs and alcohol usually don't help. Alcohol in particular is a depressant, so it usually doesn't help. But something productive, if you've got something productive that you like doing, so some sport, some hobby, fixing something, cleaning something. Cleaning's a good one. My wife likes pissing me off, because when she pisses me off, I start cleaning. Because it's just something I do. I find if I'm getting frustrated or pissed off, if I start cleaning, it really calms me down. I think it's just because you're doing something. You're not, you can still think about what you're thinking about, and you can still ponder it, but it's just a little distraction. So I start cleaning things and fixing things and doing things productive, and it has a magical effect, as well as the fact that you're actually achieving something worthwhile. At the end of it, you go, look, there's a clean room. But the other thing is that you're also distracting yourself a little bit as well, and it's good. So something like that, some sort of sport, some sort of hobby, something like that. That in the meantime too, as well as being good for your mind and good for yourself, your feeling about yourself and feeling about the world, and lifting your spirits, it also makes you better company to be with the people around you as well, and that can result in some more good things happening for you as well. So, hopefully there's something in all this, in all that gibbering that has produced something worthwhile for somebody. But for that lady, I'd say, from the few things that you told me, it does sound like you made the right decision, and we just have to accept that in life this is what we have to go through. Usually we have to go through these things quite a lot. Some people, it's just the puzzle things. There's an element of luck in it, and I know one guy I went to school with when we were 17. Him and his girlfriend got together when we were 17 years old and got married, and here we are 100 years later, and they're still together happily. Just amazing. And I know another couple that got together, it wasn't their first partners, but second or third partners when they were about 20, and they got together and they're still together, 100 years later. So it does happen. But out of the other 120 people I went to school with, most of them have been through lots of partners to try and find one that they're happy with. And you can be lucky, and you could get one within a few partners, or you can be unlucky and it can take a lot longer. And I think the other thing is that as we get older too, we learn how to work at relationships. And there's some things in relationships that we can compromise on in order to help the relationship to work, and there's some things that we can't compromise on, because they'll compromise our happiness. And as we get older, we sort of tend to realise those things too. What's not important. The washing thing in the middle of the lounge room, is it really that important? Does it really mess your life up that much? Well, if it doesn't, well, just leave it, ignore it, doesn't matter. That tends to be what happens too. And the other thing is, that's the other way to look at it too, the living together thing. There's an element of practice required, to practice living with people, and you can look at it like that too, that each time you live with someone, or the longer you live with someone, the more you learn about this sort of thing, and you get better at it. You do get better at it. 100 years ago I would have been a horrible person to live with, but I think I'm probably a little bit better now, because over the years you learn to be more, to accept the things that don't matter, you know, and you communicate so that the things that do matter you communicate about, and you can sort of sometimes reach resolutions. So, you know, you can get better at fixing things, provided that you're the right fit. I mean, it keeps coming back to that. If you're not the right fit, if you're two pieces of the puzzle that don't fit together, then it's not fixable. It's not doable, because you just don't fit, and you just have to accept that and move on, you know. So anyway, hopefully that's been of small help. And the other thing is that other advantage of being old is that, you know, these things pass, the pain passes, and you will recover. You will recover from that pain and feel happy again. You know, that's the other thing. When you're a beginner at these things, you tend to feel like that pain. I'm never going to recover from this. You know, I'm going to be sad forever, and I'll never meet anybody like that again. And because when you're old, you look back at the people that you felt that about, and you realise it wasn't. You know, at the time it was true, but in the big picture you find it wasn't true. That really wasn't the right person for me. And it's lucky I didn't stay with that person, because they really weren't the right one for me. You know, and that's often the case. In the future, you look back and go, no, he wasn't really right for me. It was the right thing to stop being with him. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful to somebody. More videos coming soon.